So how were you when you were kind of in this role? How were you from the IT perspective as kind of the leader of the IT department, and then obviously you had to take this to the decision makers. How are you weighing risk versus usability or risk versus cost?
That's a good one. That was the somebody once said, I think it was at an ILTA conference, somebody said that technology left to technologists would become unusable, right? Like we can, by our very nature, complicate the bejesus out of something to where people can't use it. So there's always this risk versus usability. Lawyers need to be able to work from wherever. Okay, well, that's going to present a risk, but the usability, the billable time, the getting things done for the client is huge. So we need to figure out. So for everything that you do on one side, you need to do something on the other side to help protect it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you have everything inside one office. You could do lockdown, Fort Knox, you have to be in the office to work. Those aren't the days anymore. So it's everywhere. So yeah, every time you're opening something up to make it usable for your lawyers, you have to counter that with something. So that was always, I would look at that in a tit for tat kind of thing. We want to open this up, but if we do, we're going to have to protect it with this. And if you're approaching everything from that risk versus usability, if we want to be able to use this here, we're going to have to at least minimize some of the risk by putting something in place on the other side. Acceptable risk conversations. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. If you want to be able to work from wherever, and these last few years, oh my gosh, like if you weren't doing that, being able to work from anywhere, um, making the transition on the fly, there's so many people that did it and didn't do it securely because they weren't having those conversations as they go. So if you are one of those that like we weren't ready for working from anywhere, we had to quickly deploy working from anywhere. Going back and addressing those security concerns that you opened up by doing that, that's probably, well, maybe too late, but good time to do it now.
Yeah. What are some of the best practices for remote workers maintaining the security? What are some of the best practices that, like, from your perspective, Ray?
Um, okay, so I think the first thing is obviously you want them preferably working on your devices. So the one thing that law firms have that a lot of like our company's a little bit different. Law firms, almost everybody is holding on to client data at some point, right? Whether it's in your emails, documents you work on. Whenever you're holding on to client data, if you're a bank holding it, there's always these other organizations that you're answering to. You have this higher ethical responsibility to protect that data, right? So not working on just personal devices, but only working on firm owned devices, being able to control those devices, making sure those devices are clean. The simplest thing, and I think somebody once said that the biggest preventer of cybersecurity issues is just preventative maintenance, making sure you're patching, make sure you have good antivirus endpoint detection, something like a CrowdStrike or one of those. It's monitoring everything that's happening on the endpoint that they're working on. And then I know you can't completely stop them from getting onto Outlook, outlook.com from some other laptop, but you can limit down to where you can't actually download data on those. So conditional access rules inside of Azure. There's so many things that I think are at people's disposal that they don't want to take the time to learn, but they're really not as complicated as they seem. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
two-factor authentication, using firm-owned devices whenever possible that you have control over, and then good hygiene, making sure you're keeping your systems patched so you're not susceptible to the latest vulnerability. And that includes all the endpoint systems. The places that stuff's coming in from is going to be the individual attorney sitting at a Starbucks somewhere.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then just, as people are so much more mobile now, I know a lot of law firms, it was, and some still are, they want everybody. We work with one law firm, and they want everybody in the office, but I think most law firms are now having to get to the point,
Softening.
even
Yeah.
if the plaque is on the wall, they're really not in there that much. They're kind of at home or on the road or the golf course or wherever they're, working from. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like monitor those behaviors, and just being able to see strange behavior that's anomalous, right? 99% of it's probably okay, but it's that one that you want to capture.